Okay, so I think we are keeping to time. Thank you, Maza. And I do realize that it's a Saturday. So we'll move on to our next speaker, Dr. Noor Azila Muhammad Isa. She's a consultant family medicine specialist in Klinik Kesihatan Putrajaya Precinct 9. She's currently also attending another course and being a trainer in another course. And she's given up this small little slot to give her talk. And she will bring us through stable asthma management. So even though it's stable, it's important to know what to do during that time, right? So she's going to talk about beyond the SABA only treatment. So with that, I would like to invite Dr. Noor Azila to share her slides. Azila, I see. Can you move forward? You're a bit dark. Forward a bit. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Prof, for the kind introduction. Okay, let me share my slides first. Everyone can see, yeah?
Yes, we can.
All right, okay. So thank you, Dr. Maza. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank MATAS and also MMA for organizing this wonderful session on a Saturday evening. So I think we have all heard about the diagnosis and also risk factors for asthma. So we will move on with the next topic, which is how to treat stable asthma in primary care. And what we would like to emphasize is basically we want our asthmatic patients to be treated beyond SABA only. Okay. All right, so treatment of stable asthma. Okay, sorry. We have 3 learning objectives for this topic. So the first one is on pharmacological treatment in stable asthma, whereby we would like to emphasize ICS containing therapy is mandatory for all of our asthma patients. And the second one is actually initiating treatment in asthma. So we have heard about how to diagnose asthma patients just now, objectively, preferably by spirometry. And then now we would like to know how to go about initiating the treatment, which medications to choose, and then subsequently to discuss on the stepping up and stepping down of treatment in our asthmatic follow-up. Okay, treatment of stable asthma, of course, also involves non-pharmacological, and it is very, very important for us also to look at this area. In a patient with asthma who smokes, definitely smoking cessation is very, very important. Physical activity and exercise, weight reduction in obese patients definitely plays a role in our obese patients with asthma. And allergen avoidance should be the basic things that we should actually advise our asthmatic patients, pulmonary rehab, vaccine, and of course, we also need to look into the medications which should be used in caution in asthmatic patients. But in view of time, for today's session, we will discuss more on pharmacological treatment. So pharmacological treatment of asthma divided into 2, that is reliever therapy, which is taken as needed for quick relief of asthma symptoms, whereas maintenance therapy targets at asthma symptom control and prevent exacerbation. It is used on a regular basis even when asthma symptoms are absent. I think this need to be emphasized again and again to our patients in terms of the need for regular treatment when a patient was started on maintenance. So we start with our reliever therapy. We have 2 types. That is, the first one, it has been with us for so long already, which is short-acting beta-2 agonist, SABA. And the second one is what we call anti-inflammatory reliever or AIR, which can either be ICS formoterol and inhaled corticosteroids SABA. But I think in our country at the moment we do not have this ICS SABA readily as compared to other reliever. So SABA, Inhaled SABA should not be used as monotherapy. I think Dr. Maza has elaborated the use of. It has been found, big studies have shown that the use of 3 or more canisters of SABA per year is associated with increased risk of asthma exacerbations and even mortality. Inhaled SABA can be used as reliever in patients who are on regular ICS therapy. And again, we would like to emphasize oral SABA is not recommended due to its higher risk of systemic side effects. Now we move on to anti-inflammatory reliever. Anti-inflammatory reliever combines low-dose ICS with a fast-acting bronchodilator, in particular formoterol, because formoterol is although it's LABA, but it has the bronchodilating effect is fast-acting. Yeah, this approach lowers the risk of asthma exacerbations compared when using SABA alone. And the option actually to either use SABA or ICS LABA will depend on drug availability, its cost, inhaler techniques, and patient adherence and preference. We would like to remind everyone that only ICS formoterol can be used as anti-inflammatory reliever. For example, we also have another ICS LABA, which is ICS salmeterol, but salmeterol cannot be used as reliever because it has slower onset of action. So just to emphasize, in our CPG, this is all under recommendation 5. So in the treatment of asthma, inhaled SABA should not be used alone as monotherapy. It can be used as a reliever with regular inhaled corticosteroids and ICS LABA. Inhaled SABA overuse, 3 or more canisters per year, should be avoided. Yeah, as Dr. Maza said, we can easily ask our patients how many canisters of SABA that they used last year. And I throughout my experience, I'm sure everyone agrees, there are some patients who have 2 or 3 SABA with them, yeah, whereby one they buy in this pharmacy, and the other one they get from one KKA, and the other one they get from KKB. So we really have to be careful with these patients. And oral SABA should not be used. Anti-inflammatory reliever air therapy may be used as reliever therapy. And I also would like to emphasize, inhale LABA alone without ICS should not be used as reliever monotherapy. For example, if we have LABA in the form of formoterol, without ICS, it cannot be used as a reliever. And we move on to maintenance therapy. We have many options as in terms of our patients, in terms of our treatment. So the first and the most common that we have been using is inhaled corticosteroids, ICS LABA combination, given in the form of maintenance and reliever therapy, leukotriene receptor antagonists, for example, montelukast, methylxanthine. I think it has been theophylline is one of its medication under methylxanthine. But now we have other medications under methylxanthine called doxorubicin. We also have LAMA, long-acting anti-muscarinic, macrolides, oral corticosteroids, and sublingual immunotherapy. In view of time, we will only discuss about the first three maintenance therapy because all the other basically like macrolides, oral corticosteroids, SLITs are basically given at the tertiary center. So inhaled corticosteroids, it has been shown significantly that it is significantly reduced asthma symptoms, risk of exacerbation, hospitalization, and death. And studies have also shown if you switch one ICS with another within a category, there could be a difference in terms of asthma control, and because different ICS may vary in potency. We need to know that ICS dosage actually are categorized in terms of low dose, medium dose, and high dose. And this is important because high dose ICS can actually have potential side effects if being used long term. That is osteoporosis, cataracts and glaucoma, and even adrenal suppression. So this table actually illustrates to us the difference between the dosage of the dosage of the inhaled corticosteroids, where they are divided into low dose, medium dose, and high dose. And different ICS can have different level. For example, if we can see that in beclomethasone, PMDI, low dose is 200 to 500 microgram, medium is 500 to 1000, and high is more than 1000. But if we look at fluticasone, the low dose is even lower, 100 to 250, 250 to 500 is medium, and more than 500 is high. So when we prescribe our patients, we can actually calculate and estimate or assess whether the patient is under low or medium or high dose of ICS. So let's look at this example. For example, we are giving the patient salmeterol fluticasone, which is seretide, 25 stroke 125 microgram of fluticasone, 1 puff BD. So remember, seretide, we can only give 1 puff BD and not 2 puff BD. The maximum dose is 1 puff BD because of its salmeterol component. So the total dosage for its fluticasone is 125 times 1 times 2, that is 250, which fall into low dose. Yeah. So if we need to switch this patient to medium dose of salmeterol fluticasone, we need to give the patient with 25 to 150. Yeah. And similarly with budesonide, so we have to look at the budesonide component, which is 1 puff is 160 microgram. So 160 microgram times 2 puff, and if given 2 puff BD, and that sum up to 640 microgram, which fall into medium dose ICS. So that is for the ICS. So we move on to ICS-LABA combination. So these asthma patients who remain symptomatic despite good adherence and inhaler technique to regular daily low-dose ICS or as needed ICS formoterol can be step up to ICS-LABA combination. And studies have shown that combination of ICS-LABA is preferred to high-dose ICS during stepping up of treatment. And it is more effective in reducing exacerbation than high-dose ICS alone. And as we all know, high-dose ICS is also high risk of potential side effect. And what is SMART therapy? It is actually daily use of ICS formoterol inhaler for asthma maintenance, and we also use the same ICS formoterol for symptom relief. Studies have shown in mild to moderate asthma, low-dose SMART has been found to be better than ICS-LABA with as-needed SABA and ICS with as-needed SABA. In moderate to severe asthma, either low to medium dose SMART or high dose ICS-LABA plus as-needed SABA can be used at its same potency. I would like to also remind us all is to check on patient. If this patient, we have actually discussed with the patient and they agreed to use SMART, please remind them, please emphasize to them, they cannot use SABA as their reliever, because I have seen a few patients where we give MART therapy, but they also use SABA in between as their reliever, because that will actually contradicts and probably can actually worsen the condition. Yeah. So, okay. Let's talk about other treatment. LTRA, Montelukast, can be added to ICS-containing therapy in patients with concomitant allergic rhinitis. LAMA, long-acting muscarinic agent, may be added in patients who remain symptomatic or have exacerbation despite the medium or high-dose ICS-LABA. Theophylline, the methylxanthine group, was used to be popular. I remember doing study in the district that I worked before. Theophylline was second to ICS for maintenance therapy, but it actually a lot of studies have shown that it should not be used for treatment of asthma due to its limited clinical benefits and high risk of side effects. There are new methylxanthine coming in, but the benefits is not strong yet. So oral corticosteroids is not recommended for routine long-term asthma control in primary care. So these are the recommendations, same as what I've mentioned before. So let's move on to this diagram in terms of which can actually help us to decide which medications that we want to give to our patients. So we will go step by step. So the moment we confirmed asthma as what has been described by Dr. Maza before this, we need to assess the patient's asthma control. As compared to diabetic patients whose assessment is through HbA1c, hypertensive patient by the blood pressure monitoring. So for asthma, we do not have any objective physical examination or investigation that we can do, but we have validated tools that we can use to determine whether what is the control of asthma of the patient. Okay, so this is GINA assessment of asthma control, where we ask 4 main questions. So if the patient do not have any of these symptoms, for example, daytime asthma symptoms more than twice per week, any night awakening, SABA reliever for symptoms more than twice per week, or any activity limitation due to asthma. If the patient said, no, I don't have any of these, so that means the patient have well-controlled asthma. If the patient said yes in 1 or 2 stems, then the patient has partly controlled asthma. And if the patient complained of 3 or 4 or all, that means that the patient's asthma is uncontrolled. So the other tool that we can use, which is self-administered, is asthma control test. The questions are a little bit about the same with the GINA assessment table just now, but it is more, it is graded into 5 categories. Yeah. So from my experience, the first time that you want to introduce the patient to answer, you might need to help the patient a bit, explain. But subsequently, when patient is confident, then they are able to answer themselves. Yeah. So the scoring. So if the patient, so of course we will just follow the numbers here. So if the patient score as a whole 5 to 15, that shows that the patient have very poorly asthma control. 16 to 19 not well controlled, and 20 to 25 well controlled. Okay, so after we have confirmed, we have assessed the asthma control, we also have to look at whether this patient have high risk of future exacerbations or not. Yeah, including poor adherence or incorrect inhaler technique, but we are talking about patients who are newly diagnosed. Yeah, so I think this one Dr. Maza have covered very well in her first lecture. So these are the things that we need to also know in our patients. If the patient have previous severe asthma, requiring ICU admission, for example, of course, we have to make sure that this patient need to be treated aggressively. Yeah, and similarly, if patient is smoker, pregnant or have low lung function, we know that this patient really needs treatment, and we and follow up. Okay, so let's say we have assessed the risk factor, assessed the asthma control, and from our assessment that the patient asthma control is well, so we can either start the patient on maintenance low dose ICS and PRN SABA. Last time we used to have only PRN SABA, but now if you can see, none of the choices have only SABA or reliever alone. Yeah, so maintenance low dose ICS or PRN SABA, or PRN ICS formoterol, or PRN ICS SABA. How to choose is basically depending on patient. I have patients who actually do not want to take medications regularly. Yeah, so probably PRN ICS formoterol would be a better choice. Yeah, but some patients who think that no, they want something regular and they are compliant with it, probably maintenance low dose ICS and PRN SABA can be given to this patient. So if patient do not have well controlled asthma, so we can look at two options. Yeah, whether the daily symptoms was most days whether was the symptoms was most days or daily symptoms. Yeah, and night awakening, FEV1 less than 80 basically fall into these categories. So let's say if the patient have symptoms most days, yeah, we can start the patient straight away with maintenance low dose ICS LABA or low to medium dose ICS. If the patient has daily symptoms or night awakening and FEV1 less than 80, we can consider that the patient on a higher treatment, that is maintenance medium to high dose ICS LABA or medium dose ICS LABA with added LAMA. So after starting this treatment, patient need to be reassessed 3 to 6 months, and then subsequently, if the patient's asthma control is well controlled, then we continue the current therapy and we decide to de-escalate the treatment when we think that the patient is ready. Yeah, normally not too soon, probably after 3 to 6 months, depending on their risk factors for future exacerbation. And if it is not normal, so we have to escalate the treatment. During every time when the patient, when we review the patient, we always need to check whether the patient was compliant to treatment or whether the patient is using the inhaler technique correctly. Because these two common issues is always happening, yeah, to our patient. No, so no point of us escalating, but actually the technique is very, very poor. So remember, no more SABA monotherapy, all should be on ICS containing therapy. If you want to give reliever therapy only, then ICS formoterol would be the answer. So this is the step up and down table in the CPG. So for example, if you start a patient on low dose ICS LABA or medium dose ICS, yeah, as a starting, and then when you review the patient after 3 months, after checking the inhaler technique and also compliance to treatment, patient comply, patient take the inhaler technique correctly, then you have to step up to medium dose ICS LABA. And then subsequently, after you have reviewed the patient, again check similar things, also look for comorbidities and have treated them all. Then if the patient is not better, then you have to consider stepping up. Either we give high dose ICS LABA or medium dose ICS LABA plus LAMA. Yeah. But by this time, we should be doing phenotypic assessment already. What we mean is probably we would like to know what is the eosinophil level. If you have IgE blood, you can actually do that, you know. And then subsequently, if the patient still not better, we have to consider referring to the tertiary center, probably Respi Clinic, so that patient can be assessed furthermore and to decide for higher level of medications. Yeah. And then subsequently, if the patient on high dose ICS LABA, for example, and you have noticed that the patient has been well controlled with risk of future exacerbation is now has been controlled and lowered, you can actually consider reducing down to medium dose ICS LABA and subsequently to the lowest effective dose. Yeah, we do not want to lower down and then subsequently patient has attacks. Yeah, so to the lowest effective dose. So I would like to emphasize again, assessment of asthma control should be performed before considering stepping up and down the treatment algorithm. SABA should be taken with inhaled corticosteroids. Treatment should be stepped up to achieve good asthma control. If asthma control is achieved at 3 to 6 months reassessment, we consider stepping down treatment to find the lowest effective dose. So take-home message, initiation of treatment depends on asthma control and symptom frequency. Treat to achieve asthma control and find the lowest effective dose to minimize side effects. And don't forget, non-pharmacological management such as smoking cessation, regular physical activity, and weight reduction should be initiated. So again, our last message, no more SABA monotherapy, all should be on ICS containing therapy. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Azila, for your very stern lecture on no SABA monotherapy. I hope that for the people in the audience, you will remember that very, very clearly because we feel very passionate about that. Right. So thank you, Azila, for joining us.